She's in love with herself. Grey Wolf Studios.
What's up, guys? It's Grey Wolf, back to do another video. I just thought I would show you boy bawang. This is a Filipino snack food. As some of you guys know, my wife is Filipino. Some of you don't know. Now everybody knows. And anyway, I just thought I would share that interesting little snack food with you. It's adobo flavor. Which if you've never had adobo, you wouldn't know what flavor that is, but it doesn't really taste like adobo anyway. So even if you know what adobo is, you don't know what this tastes like. It's kind of like corn nuts. If anybody's ever had corn nuts, kind of like that. Only they're a little lighter, a little crispier, a little not necessarily crunchier, but they're lighter, crispier. Kind of tasty, but anyway, thought it was interesting, so I thought I'd show you. Okay, so let's get on to what we were originally here to talk about, which is the BEC, external BECs. The external BEC, the whole purpose of this guy is to supply power to whatever electronics that you want on your vehicle and bypass the ESC. And by the way, yeah, my rustler's still busted up. I haven't fixed it from the last wreck. I have no tires on it except for the one, but I blew out a tire last time I was doing speed runs and wrecked it pretty good, and I've got all the parts to fix it. I just haven't had a chance to go back and do it yet. But at any rate, getting back to the story here, the BEC power whatever electronics that you want to power without having to rely on the ESC to do it. Now, the question is, why do you want to do that? Well, the reason you want to do that is because most of the ESCs, as we know, all have BECs built into them. They all power your RX, which in turn powers all your electronics. The problem is the built-in BECs on speed controllers are what's called a linear BEC. Linear BECs deal with, basically they take in whatever voltage from from the battery that you're getting, which could be anywhere from 7.4 all the way up to almost 25 volts, and outputs it. It cuts it down and outputs typically 6 volts, maybe even less, or right around 6 volts. Can be 6.5. Depends on your ESC, but it usually puts out somewhere around 6. The bad part about linear ESCs is the way they deal with getting rid of the extra electricity. Excuse me. The way they deal with getting rid of the excess electricity is by turning it to heat. Heat is not something we want in our ESC. Now, if you're not having problems with your ESC getting hot or even getting warm, then you probably don't need to worry about using a BEC. However, the less of a load that you put on your ESC, the more it has to give the motor, which in some cases can be very demanding. Even if your case isn't necessarily that demanding, BECs are cheap. It's a good idea. So kind of a pain in the butt though. So yeah, if your kit's not building up much heat in the ESC, probably not much reason to worry about it. But if it is, or you want to make sure that it doesn't, then you need to go with the BEC, external BEC. Now, the external BECs are called switching BECs, or switching battery elimination circuits. Now, switching BECs deal with the extra voltage in a different way. Very little They're much more efficient. Very little of the electricity actually gets turned to heat. Some of it does, but very little compared to a linear BEC. So anyway, now that we've gone over what they're for and what they do and how they work, let's go with how to hook one up. Well, you hook them up by soldering them into the adapter that plugs into your battery. I've got mine soldered in here to my Dean's connector along with my wires, but I have liquid tape on the end of the Dean's connectors to kind of waterproof it and help keep those wires in place and whatnot. And I just zip tied the BEC to these wires to keep it kind of in place so it doesn't flop around a whole lot. Then from there, let's see, from there, you can see the power wire right here runs down. Oh, wait a minute, that's the switch. The power wire right here coming off the BEC comes up into one of those EMI rings, so it doesn't create a lot of magnetic interference. And I kind of got it zip tied right here for security. And here's the end, the female end of the BEC. So what I did, it didn't reach obviously over to the receiver all the way over here. So what I had to do was I had to make this little guy, which is nothing more than a black and white or a black and red extension wire with Futaba connectors, male on one end, female on the other. It's just all it is is an extension. And basically, how I made that was that was really easy. If you get on eBay, now you have to order these from China, but they're cheap as can be. If you get on eBay, you can order these in different lengths, and essentially all they are is extensions. They're male Futaba connectors on one end, female Futaba connectors on the other end. And I've got a bunch of these, all different lengths. I think I have them 75 millimeters, 150 millimeters, 300 millimeters. I got a bunch of them. So basically, I just took one of those, took the white pins, you know, because normally you have a signal wire on here, right? So I took one of the white pins out of both ends of this and then just stripped the white wire off of here and essentially just created a black and red extension wire. Easy enough, right? So that's how we get this. That's how we get this right here over to this right here. So with that guy. Now, let me flip this around. So once you have your power wire connected into your ESC, your receiver is now going to be powered directly from the ESC or the BEC. So once we have that, then you can plug in anything you want. This is just for the fan for the motor. I plug it into channel 3 for power. Servo wire over here plugs in channel 1, obviously for power. But here's the trick. Here is the cable from the speed controller. Now, if we already have 6 volts running into the battery connector right here, if we plug this ESC wire into channel 2 like we're supposed to, then we're going to be adding another 6 volts into this receiver, and a receiver cannot handle 12 volts. You'll fry it. So what you have to do is create something like this. Actually, what you need to do is create, basically what you really need to do is just create an extension wire. This is actually a Y splitter. It's like, this is an extension, but it splits into two female connectors from one male, and I'll show you why here in a minute. But essentially all you really need, unless you have specialty needs, is basically this. You need something that'll hook up you can hook up the ESC wire to the male end of this, and then basically what I did on the female end was I cut the red wire, or the power wire, so that way when you plug the other end of this into your receiver, you're not going to smoke your receiver, because it's not going to be getting power from both the BEC and the ESC. Now the reason I have a splitter is because this other end was powering a gyro, which I was playing around with in this model, and that actually was being powered by the speed controller's BEC, but that was just because I happened to have this. I had this made already, so it was easier than making one that split off of here to be powered by the BEC. And I figured the gyro wasn't going to take much power from the ESC anyway, so anyway, that's neither here nor there. That's why I have a splitter, but this is the only example I have to show you. All you really need is not a splitter, but just an extension cable with the power wire cut out of the female end. So that way you can plug that into channel 2 on your receiver, and you can still get the signal. Your receiver will still get the signal from the ESC, but not the power. And then everything else will be drawing power through the receiver from the ESC plugged into the battery port. Now I happen to have this particular one that I have is a 3 amp. It's a 3 amp BEC with a maximum of 5 amps. This is plenty good if you're running a kit that has really just one servo, and it can even be a high powered servo. I have a 244 ounce 0.13 second servo in this unit. It's a pretty beefy servo, and the servo itself only pulls about one. Highest I've ever seen it pull is about 1 amp. About, I think 0.98 is the highest I've ever seen it pull. Maybe it might spike up to 1.2 amps at the most. The receiver pulls something like 0.23 amps. The fan pulls, I want to say it's like 0.18 amps. So altogether it's like less than 1.5 amps. So this BEC right here is sufficient for that. Now if you're running a big kit with say 3 or 4 servos, then this one BEC isn't going to do the trick. You're going to need a bigger one. You're probably going to want a 10 amp, and even they make them even higher, but 10 amp probably will power just about anything. Castle does make a 25 amp, although I can't imagine the rig that would require a 25 amp BEC. But at any rate, they do make it. So you can get them, I know for a fact you can get these in 3 amp, 5 amp, 10 amp, and 25 amp. Depending on, you know, your power needs will kind of dictate what you buy. But just bear in mind, you will need a couple special wires. You'll probably need an extension cord for your BEC, and you'll need some kind of wire to plug in to the ESC wire into, and then plug it into the receiver without the power wire. And the reason that you want to do that, instead of just cutting the power wire on your ESC wire, is because your ESC wire needs that red wire intact especially if it's programmable like a Castle or a Tekin speed controller, you need that red wire intact, or actually any of them really. Even though they're not computer programmable, even like Hobby Wings, in order to program them with the card, you got to have all three of those wires intact. So I don't like messing with the actual ESC wire. If I need to program this, I can simply unplug this ESC wire from this adapter wire and still program it without having to jump through a bunch of hoops to do it. And I think that's a wrap. I believe that is the main... I think that's all the main points that I was trying to cover on that. So if you have any questions, you can always get a hold of me, graywolfstudios74@gmail.com. I can be reached there. I can also be found on rcnitrotalk.com. That's the forums that I frequent. You can also get a hold of me on Facebook. Simply look up. You have to look up my other email address, which is graywolf74@gmail.com. You can look me up on Facebook that way. I believe it displays my real name, Shane Johnson, on there. But you can look me up there. So that's it for BECs. If you have any questions, contact me one of those three ways, and I'll be happy to try to answer any questions that you have. Peace.